Hello everyone, and welcome to Creating Adobe Connect Sessions from Scratch. This is presented by Dana Sednick at Live Online Learning Solutions, as well as also MeetingOne audio and web conferencing. The voice you're hearing right now, my name is Luke, and I'm with the MeetingOne support team, and I am going to be a co-host for this session here with Dana. We're very excited to be presenting this session to everybody. And if you take a look what we have here on our screen, first off, if you have any questions about anything at all that we're speaking about or any technical issues or anything like that, there is a Q&A pod to your left that you can go ahead and use. And then also to the right in the pod that is marked as Insights, if you have insights with your fellow participants that you want to share or any revelations during the course of the webinar that you want to share as well, please feel free to type them in there. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dana so we can rock and roll and get ready to go.
We're going to rock and roll. We're going to share some recipes. We're going to get started. We're going to share some tips, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. Thank you so much, Luke, for getting us started and getting ready. I am loving about hearing both the famous chefs that you resemble and what you're cooking up in Adobe Connect. You know, it's really interesting. We have some experts, and we've got some newbies, and we've got some people who are just interested in learning more because they're thinking about getting in. I just shared with you a little bit of our results about familiarity with Connect. And so what I'd love to do, this is a really participative session, and as we go through, for those experts who are out there who've already learned great recipes or secrets or tips, if you want to continue to share those in that Insight pod, the more expertise that comes in this room, the better. So I'm loving all of the information that we've got here. We've got tons of different things that you're cooking up in Connect, from executive training that includes breakout sessions and presentations. Wow, Jessica, you've got a full plate to get ready for there, to health information sessions, customer webinars, all kinds of presentations, those who produce webinars and virtual training. Thanks, Mike and Matt. I think we've got a good crew here. So let's get our information started, and we're going to take our inspiration from another famous chef. So when we think about Saturday Night Live and the 90s, I'm not sure if you remember the anal retentive chef who is played by Phil Hartman. We're going to just watch a brief clip of Phil Hartman trying to get steak prepared. And so as you watch this, I would love for you to hashtag your reactions while you watch this show for our inspirational chef on cooking up Adobe Connect sessions today. So let's watch a little bit about Phil Hartman attempting to cook some steak. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Anal Retentive Chef. I'm Gene. Today we're going to be making pepper steak. Now you're going to need 1 large bell pepper, 3 onions exactly 2 inches in diameter, and 17 1/3 ounces of lean beef cut into 43 pieces. Okay, let's get started. Now I've already cut up my bell pepper. Look at this. Isn't this nice? See how all the pieces are the same size? You know, people try to tell you that the secret to pepper steak is the seasoning, but we know different, don't we? It's getting all the pieces the same size. That's right, and that's what I've done here. They're beautiful. Uh-oh. All right, this one is a little bigger than the rest, so we'll just discard that one. And I don't think this little wrinkly one belongs in here. And this, well, I just don't like the look of that one at all. All right, let's take that out. As a matter of fact, why don't we just start over and throw this out? And how do we throw things out? Okay, we take our paper toweling. 2 pieces, unbroken, lay it out neatly, dump the refuse inside, arrange neatly. Let's take these little nasties we separated earlier, put that back, fold over carefully, making sure the corners are square. And we take a piece of aluminum foil, and we place our refuse onto the foil and fold over very carefully. This way it won't leak onto the other garbage. Aluminum foil is such a miracle product. It's really an extraordinary product. All right, and then we take a brown paper sandwich bag, place the refuse inside, and Oh, now this bag is torn. Well, no, that's all right. We'll just fold over and no one will see. We'll fold it over twice to be careful.
Oh, Phil. He is taking so much time to make everything so perfect that we don't even get to see the steak getting cooked, right? So what I would love to share and hear from you is, when you're thinking about setting up Adobe Connect sessions, especially for folks who do it often or are just getting started, what are some of the things that distracts you from the primary purpose of getting set up in Adobe Connect? What are some of those things that get you off on a tangent and gets you, worried about making things perfect? So Gail says, too much lecture. The lunch that you're eating right now is always a distraction. Yes, totally. Too much lecture, yeah, like getting it set up as you're starting to get your session set up and planning for what you're going to cover. You might get distracted by having so much content that you want to share that you're not thinking about how you can begin to design your sessions so that they're more interactive, because I've got so much to share. Eileen says trying to find a new pod. Yeah, we get really excited and maybe distracted by some of the extra bells and whistles that come along with Adobe Connect, and sometimes we want to run before we walk and get distracted on maybe I can find this really other cool pod to do this one other thing, and then 25 minutes later we haven't even set up the room for the very thing that we were going to do. Yes, tons of distractions, bumped out of the room and troubleshooting, distractions for showing videos. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, for sure. Lots of different things that happen, right? How many are too many pods, Melanie? That is a great question. It kind of depends on what you're doing and who your audience is. So yes, very good. There's lots of distractions, and we're here today to talk about the basic recipes, the ingredients that you need to have a really successful meal, if you will, a session that goes off without a hitch. So we're going to just jump in. I'm going to share with you our agenda for today. We're cooking up in 4 stages here. Creating the menu, we're going to talk about getting everything all set up, your mise en place, if you will. And then we're going to talk about inviting the guests. What do you do with that whole invitation? And then once you're in the room and you're ready to do the thing that you need to do, to serve the meal, if you will, we'll talk about all of those things and dealing with things like troubleshooting and some of the distractions that happen once you go live and you have participants or attendees in there with you. And then we'll talk about a very important secret ingredient, which is all about sending thanks and the follow-up that is associated. So let's jump into creating the menu. It really is about setting up for success. This is really the first thing that you need to do is get all of your ingredients in place so that you can set your room up for success and prepare the meal, some of the parts that you need to prepare in advance before you actually get into the room. So let's talk about these 3 things: gathering basic ingredients, setting up for success, and preparing the meal. So when we think about ingredients here, you want to gather your basic ingredients. And for those who are not familiar or just getting started with Adobe Connect, there's really 2 important things that you want to think about. The first thing is that you have the current Adobe Connect add-in. And the Adobe Connect add-in allows your Adobe Connect to actually pop up in its own window that gives you a lot more flexibility in the way that you're able to move pods around and design your layouts and everything. So making sure that you have the current Adobe Connect add-in is #1 basic ingredient. The second ingredient that I highly suggest is to make sure that your audio is integrated with Connect. And these are 2 buttons that you can press to learn more. We're also going to share with you this recipe, if you will, in a PDF after the presentation today. So stay tuned. You'll get this. Also at the end of today's session. So audio integration is really important, whether you're having a meeting where you want people to talk, because then you know who's talking because their name is associated with their phone, or you might want to do something that's a streaming live presentation where the only person or persons on the phone are the people who are presenting, and everybody else is using their typing fingers like we're doing today. which works really wonderfully if you have a set of 100-plus folks on the call like we do today. So those are your two first basic ingredients. Make sure that you've got the Connect add-in and that you've got your Connect integrated with your audio. If you've got through MeetingOne, it's a really simple process, and then it's all connected. Okay, so we've gathered our basic ingredients. Now we need to really set up for success. And in order to set up for success, thinking about all of the things that you need to do, that you want to do, that are the objectives of why you're doing something, you've got to first figure out what kind of session that you're having so that you can design it so that it actually accomplishes its mission, right? And typically I see that there's kind of three types of sessions that people have. They either tend to fall into the information sharing category, or they might fall into the work producing. We've got to get together and produce a document, or we've got to make sure our PowerPoint is ready for the presentation that's coming up later, or relationship building. We have an annual party here at MeetingOne, which is our holiday party, and it's all about building relationships and having a good time so that we can connect with one another and do some of those human things to be able to build trust. So typically there's three types of sessions, and I'm curious to hear what kind of sessions do you do or are you looking to do? So if you're doing an information sharing session, share with me what that kind of information is. Thanks, Anna Lori and Judson. I appreciate you jumping in. If you're doing work producing sessions, share with me what kind of work are you producing? And then for relationship building, what kind of relationship building sessions do you have, like team meetings or connecting there? Lead generation. Matt, very good. I love it, right? Like a webinar for lead generation. It is a little bit about building relationships and understanding the importance of what your leads really want from you. Okay, great. So Leanne says virtual training, and Daniel, customer services and training. We've got a lot of virtual training or classroom training, which I love. Adobe Connect is one of the very best to be able to do some of that training and get some good interactivity and engagement out of it. Let me look here at work producing. Oh, Dennis, you're actually creating courseware with your team of SMEs across the world. Yeah. Team members, collaborating, working on projects, online discussion groups. Oh, fantastic. Yep. Oh, Jessica, I love it. Taking the time to reflect on an in-person experience and attend a training together. What a fantastic way to be able to both improve the work that you're doing and build relationships and learning together, right? Like collective participation together. That is always fun. Okay, very good. I'm going to give Louis his last comment here in work producing, and we're going to highlight some of the key ingredients that you might want to think about using more often when you work on each of these sessions, when you're doing information sharing, for example, or when you're doing work producing. And I know that it's not always so like cut and dry, right? We might need to produce something and then share some information and then do a little bit of relationship building. But for the purposes of really sharing about some of the key things that we're doing here and the tools that you can use in Adobe Connect, I'm going to break them out into these three. So for those who have shared information sharing as a primary menu that you're cooking up in Adobe Connect, I highly encourage you to use a lot of share pods. The share pods are really great in being able to share your information with folks. I know some people, share their screen and then share a PowerPoint within Microsoft PowerPoint, but it doesn't really give you the amount of kind of collaborative work that you can do. I love to have a share pod with my PowerPoint uploaded, or for example, this is a share pod with a picture of a share pod in it that's about to be put in my cooking pot. So you can upload JPEGs, you can upload all kinds of things that really help us get that nice visual for what you're trying to share, and then adding a chat pod to get any kind of feedback going on at the same time, which I also love. So, hey, Luke, Julie's got some technical issues in terms of hearing. If you could work with Julie to make sure that she can hear us, that would be great. And so let's see here. So information sharing try using one SharePod or multiple SharePods. I have two right here. I have my little banner SharePod and then my little picture. So think about ways that you can use SharePods to share information and multiple SharePods to share double information. Okay, so let's talk about those who are working up on work producing, sharing things that they need to produce work. Laura, that's a great question. How do you open up a SharePod? In the pods drop-down, you can actually just open up a new pod, and it actually is typically a SharePod right there. So building layouts, I'll show you a little bit about how you do that, and we'll share some resources, Laura, with you for tutorials on how to actually put more SharePods onto a layout. So for folks who are doing work-producing sessions, you know what? We got to jump in and we got to create this document, or we've got to create this presentation, or we need to list all of our lessons learned for the last face-to-face training that we did. Let's create a note together. Let's all get on the same page. You can use the Screen Share Mini Control, and when you start to share your screen, if you're the one capturing the notes, you can use that to be able to toggle through with being able to see what people are chatting, so you can take take assessment while you're taking those notes, or creating that work, if you will, together and sharing out your screen, whether it's a document or a PowerPoint or what have you. And then the mini control, this is the best part, is that the mini control helps you navigate back into the room when you're done creating that document or doing that work producing stuff, so that you can get back into the main room and continue on in your meeting. So that mini control is really important, and that first little button there that looks like a TV window or what have you, you can then press stop sharing, and that brings you back into the room. That's a nice secret, instead of being like, wait, where's my room? And now we're on a safari tour of your desktop. So that's a nice, simple way to be able to go and do work and then come right back in. For those of you who are doing relationship building, so team meetings, professional development, committee information, yes, communication with clients, Jim, I love it. Chat pods are amazing. Thinking about using multiple chat pods really adds to the flavor of the types of relationship building meetings that you're doing. I love to think about, what are the 3 questions that I might ask my customers, and why might I want to know them collectively together? So for example, if we are running a debrief session and we want to know what really worked about what we did and what didn't work so well about what we did, and then suggestions for next time, I could put 3 chat pods in a row and crowdsource this information in less than 3 minutes, instead of having to go around the room to the 20 people who have input and take 20 minutes, right? So thinking about using multiple chat pods with really powerful questions as the beginning is quite helpful for relationship building and getting all of those voices and participation in the room. Melanie, I agree with you. It does take a village to run a webinar. That's why I love having both Brittany and Luke, who are helping me out here at MeetingOne. I highly recommend, as you're doing things when you can, to have a second person, a second set of hands who can be your producer, to be able to deliver webinars and presentations, especially as you're learning, to have that second set of hands there. And if you don't have anyone in your team who can do it, you can hire MeetingOne to be your extra facilitator there. So I'm loving some of the questions that are coming up here, and I just want to highlight, if you've got any questions over in that Insights pod, drop them over in the Q&A, and we'll make sure that we're able to be able to answer them. And if there's any ones, Luke, that are particularly pertinent to the things we're covering, please make sure to assign them to me. That way I can see them and answer them as we go. All right, great. So chat pods, multiple chat pods, share pods, multiple share pods, making sure that you've got a really robust ingredient list as you're setting up for success will really help design an engaging and tasty session. All right, so let's talk about preparing for the meal. Once we're set up for success, we know what kind of meeting we want to have, or training or session we want to have. Now we actually have to get in there and set up the room before the meeting actually starts. And so in terms of room setup, there's two things that I highly recommend that you do in order to have a successful and participative session. The first one is building layouts and preloading content in them. So when we think about layouts, I'll share with you a little bit about what that looks like. And then the second thing that I'm going to share with you is copying the troubleshooting link. Because I promise, if you have this in your back pocket, some of that troubleshooting stuff that happens in the beginning, you'll have a lot easier way of helping others self-troubleshoot their own stuff on the back end if you have this link. So we'll share that secret right there. So yeah, great. So I have one question here from Dennis Hall. One of the biggest issues for us is, has been producers trying to keep the slides and pods synced while being able to keep an eye on the students. As we haven't found a good way to do it and keep track of what's going on. You know, Dennis, that's really interesting. One of the ways that we do it is that the presenter is the one who manages the pods. So I'm the one who's clicking through the slides because I know when I want to have a transition. And my producers, those who are helping me technically, are the ones who are keeping an eye on the question pods and the chat pods and are able to kind of handle some of those things so I can focus on the content. And so I can focus on managing transitions. And you don't have to hear me say every time, okay, next slide. Okay, next slide, right? So we eliminate that by kind of assigning and delegating tasks, right? You've got your sous chef and you've got your main chef, and so you've got to know who's doing what in the kitchen in order to make sure that everything is going to come out at the same time, right? So there you go. I hope that helps, Dennis. Okay, so let's talk about building layouts. Being able to use the layout bar when you're a presenter who has host rights, over on the right there's this film strip that comes up, and it usually comes with 3 layouts automatically loaded into your room. And I like to create a series of new layouts. In fact, this meeting has 16 layouts associated with it. And those layouts help me transition pieces and content from one to the other so that we've got a nice flow. So when you think about building your meeting or your session, think about the types of layouts and the transitions that you might need beyond just the one PowerPoint that you have. Maybe you want to take your 45-slide PowerPoint and divide it into 5 different sub-PowerPoints within 5 different layouts that have some really cool chat pods or some polls or something associated with them so you can really dig into each of those that is sectioned out instead of, 45 slides of somebody talking. So using the layout bar, at that top part, you can click on layouts, create new layout, and then you can copy any of the layouts that are already there, carbon copy them, or you can just create one from scratch. Either way, really great to be able to play around with those layouts because it helps build a cadence and build some visual movement and momentum in your meal, if you will. Okay, great. So we've talked about the layout bar. Now I want to talk about that troubleshooting link. I would love everyone to find at the top right banner where there is the red banner that goes all the way across. Over there on the top it says Help. Do you see that over there on the top right? Help. Click on that and you can see in that drop-down menu that there is a troubleshooting link. When you go down and click on that troubleshooting link, you can actually, it pops up a new window and it tests your system and it makes sure that everything's okay. And there's actually a URL that's associated to it. Oh, hey, yeah, it's test link. It is the test link, Alicia, exactly. You can copy that in your own Adobe Connect meeting room as you're setting it up. If you copy that troubleshooting hyperlink, just copy it and paste it onto a Word document or put it somewhere that you know it so that when people are having some troubleshooting issues, you can either direct them to the Help drop-down troubleshooting or you can just send them the link directly. And this link is very helpful in making sure that everybody has everything set up to be able to see and participate and have everything kind of preloaded. It's really helpful to have in advance and in your back pocket. So that's that troubleshooting link. I'm so glad you guys all found it. We will return to it momentarily. Okay, very good. So we've set up our menu And we're ready to set up for success. We're gathering basic ingredients. We're preparing the meal. We're getting ready to invite everybody so that we can then sit down and do our thing. So a couple things I want to ask of you. So what seems easy, and what are some possible distraction pitfalls that you could imagine at this stage? So what's easy? Seems like, okay, that's cool, that seems easy. And then what are some pitfalls that you might anticipate being like Phil Hartman and getting distracted by as you go to create your menu? Possible distraction pitfalls when you're in, Jerry, like when you're in the room, and whether or not you've got interest in the room or the pool. Can you say a little bit more about what you mean, interest in the room or the pool? I'd love to understand a little bit more there, Jerry. Yeah, Luis, following the sequence of the pods, absolutely. When you're first getting started, you might not want to have 16 layouts. You might want to start with 2. Walk before you can run. Exactly. Strive for excellence instead of perfection. We don't need to have a perfect layout set up or create the menu perfectly in the beginning because you're still learning. You're not quite the master chef yet, right? So you're going to run into things where you're going to be like, next time I could do it this way, and that would be better. So start with some simple things to be able to get your feet wet and have some success with it, and don't sweat all the details. Oh, yes, totally. Breakout rooms, definitely distraction pitfalls. I encourage you to think about ways that you could get participation and engagement without breakout rooms. I know that that is a shocking thing, but how might you be able to crowdsource participation in a way that doesn't require a lot of breakout rooms? Because it's a lot of complexity for your participants to manage. Unless you're doing it all the time and they get the flow and you're going to do it again, then breakout rooms are fabulous. So very good. Adobe Tech Problems. Great, great, great. Good. Okay, so multiple chat boxes. Layouts are simple to use. Kind of makes sense there. Very, very good. Okay, so let's move on and talk about our second layer as creating our fabulous Connect session from scratch. The thing that I'd like you to do is think about the invitation and inviting the guests and giving them the details for joining. We can totally get Phil Hartman on this and send a series of 6 pages of details for joining. And you know what? When it comes to the invitation, nobody will look at it or read it. So I actually am going to tell you a little bit about 2 things here, and then we'll share this tips for connecting. What I like to do is I like to make it super simple because I can share all the other details about the stuff, once everybody successfully gets in the room. So I try to keep my invitations very simple and very succinct. I copy and paste the room URL into the invitation. So if it's in my Outlook, I just put the URL directly in there. I don't even provide any of the dial-in details or anything because it's going to pop up for them once they get in anyway. But I do include, for participants who have never done it before, I include this series of tips for connecting, and I keep it simple, the KISS method of keeping it simple, and these are the 3 things that I share when it comes to Adobe Connect tips. So I always put this in there, use a wired connection. If you have issues, try refreshing your browser and ensure you have whatever you need for your session, whether it's speakers, whether it's a webcam, whether it's you're on the phone and you want them to have a headset and not the phone, speaker phone or what have you, or a bunch of people in a conference room using the speaker phone in the table, which gets all crazy when you're in an Adobe Connect session. So I kind of clarify some of those connection tips up front, depending on what it is. Sometimes I'll even put these Adobe Connect connection tips at the front page when people join. They're right there for people to see to remind them of the things that they need to have. So agreed, keep the invitation simple. Yeah, fantastic. Really it is. If you put too much in there, then stuff is just going to get lost and missed and people don't even read it. So speaking of keeping it simple and adding the things that you need in here, what else might you add into your invitation? For those of you who are doing webinars and events, share with me what else is important to share in the invitation to invite the guests. For those of you who are doing meetings, what else might you need to share in that invitation beyond just the details for joining and the tips for connecting. And those of you who are doing trainings, a lot of you, including Jessica, thanks for jumping in. What else might you need to share in that invitation? Yeah, Glenda, agenda. For any of these, maybe you even need to share the agenda. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to get them in without it. But an agenda is always helpful to really set the stage for, what it is that we're going to be talking about. Maybe what they need to become prepared with, especially if they're on the agenda and need to present. They might need to be prepared. Okay, good. Oh, Jen, what a good example here is specify the time zone in the details. Absolutely. Make sure that you know the time zone, or put 2 time zones if you know you've got a bunch of people on the East Coast and the West Coast, for example. Any of those kinds of information there. Yeah, if you've got a bunch of guests, Jerry says, introduce the guests to each other. At least give an overview of who might be attending this so that they can understand the context of who's there. Some commitment time, very, very good. So hey, you know what? If you are doing webinars and events, or you're doing meetings or trainings and you want to collect some of these tips, let me give you a tip here right now. You can actually take your pointer and highlight all of these, right-click and hit copy, and you can copy all of these tips that your colleagues are sharing so that you can think about other things that you might need to include in your invitations as you set up for inviting your guests to the sessions that you're hosting. So again, you just can copy over it, highlight it all, copy, paste, and paste it onto a Word document or whatever makes sense for you so that you can keep it. Okay, great. So let's continue on. We are going to talk about serving the meal. Actually, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to share with you a little bit about the serving the meal and what I am going to cover here. So when it comes to in-session delivery, there's 3 things that, that you want to think about that kind of helps set up the session for success, that helps you eliminate some of those distractions that you were talking about after we watched poor Phil getting all worried about the garbage and all of the things that are the asides of perfectly cut vegetables. So in-session delivery, there are 3 things that you want to do to really make sure that the meal is being served well, that people can take in the data and things that you're sharing. So the first is to perform a tech check, and we'll cover that. And then I'm going to share some really great tips for screen sharing and video playback that can help make things less buggy. And then we'll talk again about that basic troubleshooting. Remember, I said we would come back to it. So let's talk about tech checks. Tech checks are really critical, especially when you're in some of those high-stakes meetings where your meal really has to be perfection, right? You've got a high-stakes type of meeting, and you've got to get it all set up. And I love Gail's point over here for easy delivery, practice, practice, practice. Absolutely. And practice with this tech check part too. So I typically come in at least 15 minutes before. If it's something that's high stakes, sometimes I come in 45 minutes before and just make sure everything is really set up for success. So 15 minutes before, make sure your audio is started and it's ready to go. Check with your presenters and that their audio sounds good, that their webcam's looking good, and that they're not just showing their forehead or something weird, because that happens. And just checking to see that they've got everything that they need. And then the thing that I like to do is I like to set it up to record right away, so it's all ready and set up to record, ready to go, because I often forget as a producer to record. So if I've got it ready, all I have to do is just press the button to start the recording. So get it all ready and get your tech check all set up so that everybody is feeling comfortable and confident to be able to deliver this meal, right? So Luis asked a question, do you recommend to send the PowerPoint in advance? You know what? I typically don't, and here's why. A PowerPoint sent often doesn't have the level of context that is the purpose for the meeting, right? Like, it's not about the PowerPoint that you're there for, it's about all the other stuff that gets said about the stuff inside the PowerPoint. And I feel like sometimes if you send out the PowerPoint, for those who actually take the time to open it and look at it, they might not be getting the level of detail that you want. And they might be like, oh, well, I've seen it, so I don't need to come to the meeting or what have you. So I typically don't like to send the PowerPoint. I like to think about things and PowerPoints not as guidance tools. I like to have like handouts that are a little bit more appropriate to what to what we're covering instead of just the PowerPoint that I share. So I hope that helps, Luis. I'm not a fan of sending out PowerPoints ahead of time because either nobody reads them or they're like, oh, I got what I need, and then they walk away without the level of depth that you want them to. So that's typically my suggestion. If anybody else has suggestions or thoughts for Luis, please drop them into that Insights pod there, and you can share your best practices of what works. Okay. So once we've done our tech check, now I'm going to share with you a couple of video playback and screen sharing tools, some tips and tricks, if you will. We've already covered the screen share mini control. I'm just going to highlight a few things that are really helpful. Including a handout link in the web links pod. That's what we do. So at the end of this session, you'll actually get a handout that has all of these details in there, a step-by-step recipe for delivering your session. So that's what we like to do for sure instead of a PowerPoint. Exactly. So screen share mini control, like I said, this is a really, really helpful little control thing that happens when you have the Adobe Connect add-in installed on your computer. And I just want to highlight the in your toolbar, whether you're on a PC or a Mac, you've got all the toolbars that show all of the applications that are open. And so I just want to highlight that if you see this logo, kind of the 4 squares thing, that is the mini control that opens automatically when you're sharing your screen. And when you press it, it opens all the details so that you can see the chats that are going on, so that you can see participants, so that you could share webcam and see webcam and people's reactions while you're sharing, and so that you can get back in the room and stop sharing. So instead of like looking all over the place for it, just find that icon, click on it, and then you've got all of your controls to be able to really get in there and stop sharing. So if you press that little icon that looks like a monitor, it will help you find that stop sharing button. That stop sharing button is so important because it brings you back immediately into the room without any additional distractions. So that's screen share mini control I love. Okay. So let me highlight this other secret here for video playback and pause. If you have a video and it is really heavy in its amount of megabytes, it's like a big video, you actually have to let it buffer. And so when you let it buffer, if you load a video into a share pod, you should use this play, pause, play method. So what I do is I go to the layout that has the video and I click play really fast and then pause. So I do play, pause. And while it's pausing, I'm setting up the video. Like I did with the Saturday Night Live video. I talked about it and set up the activity that we were going to do while the video was buffering so that it will play back nicely on everybody's screen and not pause or jolt or lag. And then when I'm ready, I hit play. So play, pause, wait a couple seconds, explain about the video that people are going to watch, the context, and then play so that it plays nice and smoothly for everyone. So that's a nice little tip on video playback, the play, pause, play method. Okay, so let's talk about basic troubleshooting because this is a distraction that happens and this is stuff that you can do. So I have 3 steps that I recommend, and don't worry, these are also in our little handout, in our recipe handout. If somebody's having a problem and they're having phone issues, the first thing I suggest to them is hang up and dial back in. Because oftentimes something happened in the audio bridge. The easiest way for them to do is just hang up their phone and dial back in. If that doesn't work and they still are having issues and those issues are video or screen issues, I tried this three-step process with them. Okay, first step, refresh your browser. If that doesn't work, try a different browser. And if that doesn't work, then that help troubleshooting link that I had you copy and paste and have up there, then I send that to them as kind of the final key there. And then, of course, when all else fails, call the folks at tech support. This is the MeetingOne tech support number, and I'll tell you, they are incredibly helpful. So you can give this tech support number to your attendees, or if it's an issue that you're having, always great to have an extra producer there, because the producer on the back end can be calling tech support to deal with any kind of one-off weird issue that happens, because, let's face it, tech doesn't always work, right? So when all else fails, call tech support. They will help you, and they're really great and quite responsive. So that's the basic troubleshooting, serve the meal. So we talked about this, serving the meal, and I just want to reflect for a moment when we think about in-session delivery and the 3 things that I shared with you. I'd like to get a little bit of feedback. What caught your attention as we were talking about sharing the meal and in-session delivery? Anything that really caught your attention there? Nothing. So Jen's jumping in. Multiple attendees are jumping in. The video caught my attention. Okay, yep, the play, pause, play. Yeah, it's a really good technique to be able to make sure that everything is all set up. Yeah, Jen, keeping those things in your back pocket are so important. I have the tech support number literally on my wall in case I need it, and I know the steps to take to be able to help others walk through any kind of troubleshooting that they have. That gives me confidence and clarity that I can just kind of walk them through in a way that makes sense, and if step 1 doesn't work, then move on to step 2. Very good. Yes, engaging with various chat pods. Thanks, Eileen. Color in the layout. Yeah, being able to kind of, as you get your training wheels off and you're starting to get dangerous with Adobe Connect, what are other cool things that you can do to really enhance the session visually? That's always fun. Okay, great. So now we're going to just come up to the last part, which is last but not least, is the sending thanks or follow-up. And I'm going to share with you about follow-up being the secret ingredient. And the secret ingredient of follow-up is so critical when it comes to sending thanks. When we think about sending thanks, our secret ingredient, just like the Iron Chef, is, of course, follow-up. So I'm going to play just like 10 seconds of this because we all love the reveal, right, of the Iron Chef is the secret ingredient. Your ingredient is. So I'm just going to play just a moment of our good friend, the Iron Chef, and sharing his secret ingredient. So here we go.
His secret ingredient is scallop mushrooms. Grab.
Hilarious. Okay, so when we think about follow-up, it is all about sending thanks. And there are a bunch of ways that you can do to collect some of the things that happened in your program, including chat pods, whiteboards and overlay pods, and note pods. You can copy and paste all of those things just like I suggested that you do. As a presenter, you can email the chat history to yourself so you've got a log of what happened. You can export snapshots if you do any kind of whiteboarding or drawing that happens in that export snapshot. And don't worry, all of this will be in your recipe guide as well. And then you can export any kind of notes if you use any kind of note pods. So there's all different ways to be able to collect data so that you can send follow-up to say, we talked about this. Here are the details of what we talked about. Thank you so much for attending. Here is your takeaway. So speaking of thanking you so much for attending, I'm just going to jump over here to our takeaway, and we'll come back to where we started. We started with sharing a little bit about what you're cooking up in Adobe Connect. Definitely not mushrooms, Jen says. And in cooking up your Adobe Connect sessions, I'd like you to reflect, now that we've been here together for about 45 minutes, what is one thing that you'll remember to do? So what's one thing you'll remember as a result of this that you'll take into account as you go to cook up your next Adobe Connect session? And there you go. Thanks, Nechama and Gail, for sharing your one takeaway. I do want to highlight that there's the above takeaway in that you can click on that 5-star Adobe Connect sessions and get your recipe for success right there that kind of goes through each of those sessions, each of those different sections that we covered today. Yes, fabulous. Thank you. So many, yes, so many more, all kinds of different tips and tricks. Yep, troubleshooting link, I love. Less is more. Add videos when possible. Keep it simple with the invite. You guys got this. Wonderful. All right, excellent. Will you be receiving the Q&A content and recording from this session? Here, that's interesting. We don't usually share the Q&A other than just posting it out so you can see all of the Q&A. And in the recording, it'll actually have all the Q&A that has been shared and posted for you. So you'll get it. It'll be inside of the recording. The folks at MeetingOne will send a note out of the recording that you get, and you can even forward this recording to others, and they can still take the takeaway at the end. So it'll all be there for you, all set up. And now I'm going to turn it over to my good friend and customer support guru, Luke. Luke Terry is the expert at additional kinds of questions that you have about Adobe Connect, about how MeetingOne works with Adobe Connect, about any of those things. So any additional questions, Luke, that you've got there that you might want to answer live here today, I'm going to turn it on over to you and say, thanks so much, everybody. I really loved cooking in Adobe Connect with you today. I hope you have a fabulous and tasty next Adobe Connect session. Thanks so much.
All righty. Thank you very much, Dana, for this wonderful webinar. A lot of good stuff was shared back and forth. This was fantastic. I see that there are a few other poll questions that have come in, and I'll just answer a couple of them right now live as best as we can. Alicia, thanks, hungry now. I'm starting to get hungry too. Lunch is just right around the corner for me. Liz, your question, is there a way to export the data from the polls? There is, yes. You would have to do that in the individual meeting reports. There is a section that's marked as by question, and that will allow you to view who answered what on a specific polling question. A good tip for that, though, is make sure that you do select end poll after you're done using that poll. If the poll is still open, then it's not going to be able to collect the data for that session. And any of these questions, if you have any further questions or want some more sort of walkthrough with it, after the session is over, you can feel free to certainly reach out to MeetingOne support, and we would be more than happy to walk you through any of these steps, as well as also clarify anything for you as well. Are there any training seminars? This is from Eileen. Any training seminars on becoming a webinar producer? Not that I'm sure of anything that's offered through MeetingOne as well. You might want to maybe reach out to Dana directly on that one. That's a very good question. But as far as actually becoming a producer, there are some other tutorials that are offered by Adobe Connect as far as just basically uploading content as well as also hosting sessions. But as far as becoming an actual session or learning producer, that's nothing that I'm not aware of, anything that MeetingOne does offer at this time at least. Okay. Let's see, best practices for virtual classroom to engage students. Gail Wilkinson, that's a very good question. As far as that, to engage the students, essentially the biggest difference between a virtual classroom and then a meeting room is just the capacity difference. So a lot of the tools that you're referring to right now that we're using for engaging students, they can be applied to a virtual classroom, because the way that a virtual classroom works, the layouts are used exactly the same, content's uploaded exactly the same, you can share videos, you can use your webcam. So a lot of what we were talked about today can actually apply for a virtual classroom as well, and can be used to help engage students and to keep them disinterested in the entire material. Let's see, is there a way to getting it? Tell me, that's a very specific technical support question. Anything that's related to Adobe Connect, what I would say headsets, or what I would say to anything specific to hardware, you can reach out to MeetingOne support directly, and we can help out with that. So I would reach out to support directly, since that's a question that's a little bit more specific, and want to make sure that we do address that question, but also take any questions that are some more takeaways. Luis's question, how can I color the chat messages for the host? What you can do for that is, if you were to click on, and this is an option that's available to all participants, not just the host or the presenters. If you were to click on the chat options or the pod options, you have the option where you can select a size of the chat, as well as also some specific colors as well. And that is available to everybody, not just to a host to assign, so each participant can have their own custom color. I'm currently right now talking and using red, but if someone else wants to try to maybe change their color, I can change it to a green one right now, which I'm going to do, if I can just agree with me. So, hello with green. There you go. Yep, I see, Eileen, you got it there. You got a nice red one. That is perfect. Okay, just seeing if we have any more questions like that. Any more questions that have come in at all? Go ahead and we'll take the last few minutes, so we've got plenty of time for questions. And again, if you do have any other ones that do pop up, that's, after you get some lunch in you, after talking about all the cooking and all the recipe that's been going back and forth, if you do have any questions or any follow-ups, again, please feel free to reach out to support@meetingone.com, and we'd be more than happy to follow up and walk through any of these steps with you. Alicia, that's a very good point. That is a very eye-catching color. I've never actually used the pink before in the chat pod, and that definitely draws your eye to it no matter what. So that is great. Just taking a look at a few other questions as well. How you can change the background. This is one thing that we mentioned in the chat pod, but I'll say it out loud because this is a very good question, Jessica. To change the background in a meeting room to just a specific meeting room, what you can do is you can click on the meeting drop-down menu, and then you have the option to select preferences. And that'll then open up a general preferences screen. And what you can do is the very first option under room appearance, it gives you the option to select upload, and then you can upload an image file, and then that can be the background of your meeting room. And that'll be the background for all of your layouts and for everything that's within that meeting room specifically. You can also upload Flash files, so SWF files, if you have a moving background that you want to share with your participants or your students or your learners or whomever is attending your meeting, you can certainly do that since Flash files, SWF files, are compatible with Adobe Connect meeting rooms. Help number again for participants. If participants are having difficulty getting into the meeting room mic, again, I'm just going to go ahead and I'll type a response in that to the Q&A pod. The general help number is also the tech support number for people is 888-523-8445, and I'm sending that out directly into the chat pods. That way everybody can see that. So that's the general number for participants if they're having trouble getting their audio connected, or the first line if they're having trouble getting into the meeting room. But then also if your meeting hosts are having some difficulties as well with the integrated audio or Adobe Connect, that's the number you can certainly reach out. Change the color of the pod headers. That is something that is a back-end setting under the administration portion of your Adobe Connect page, and we can definitely go through that if you were to reach out through support. That is under the back end of Adobe Connect under administration, and there is a section marked as customization. That's where you're also able to change the imagery that's up there if you want to have, say, your company logo on the screen that greets the participants, asking them to enter in either their login information or their name as a guest. It does allow that. Going through and checking some other questions as they come in. Okay, just seeing a few other things people remember. Just testing the pink color. Please disregard the comment. No problem. Okay, seeing a few other people just typing in some questions as well, but we still got a couple minutes. But if there are no other questions, and like we did mention before, there will be a follow-up email that will contain the recording link, and you can use that as a reference for future questions that you might have after reviewing it. From European countries, Joanne, there is a specific country that there is a specific information that will get to be typed in here in a response where you can reach out if you have people who are dialing in from the EU to our MeetingOne EU bridge, since we do have EU customers. But also if participants are having difficulty dialing into the United States bridge from a European number, they would want to call the United States support team. But if they're calling into a MeetingOne European number, they would want to contact the European support team. How can we add a template to a whiteboard? Diane, I'm not sure I understand the question. How can we add a template to a whiteboard? Could you maybe elaborate with that? If you can send a response into that as well. In the breakout rooms, how can we add a template to a whiteboard? For the breakout rooms, since breakout rooms can get a little bit more involved, what I'd recommend doing is contacting support with any questions that you have on that, just because that can get a little bit more involved and might involve some more one-on-one session, just to also clarify what the question that you do have and just to make sure that we do give you the right answer. Okay, let's see, just seeing if there's any other questions that are involved. Can we have a template? Okay. Just looking through the other questions right now. Mike, for connectivity issues, the simplest way and the easiest way people are having difficulty connecting, here's just a couple quick things I would suggest if anybody's having difficulty connecting is, first and foremost, if you can, use a hardwired internet connection. That is the best absolute way to make sure that you do have a steady connection to the internet for your Adobe Connect sessions. Of course, that's not always possible in this day and age with a lot of wireless connections. So if you do have a participant who is using a wireless connection, make sure that they are as close as they can be to the router for their wireless connection. Make sure that they have any and all of their programs that might ping the internet closed, so other web browsers, email, social media, streaming media, making sure that they're completely closed. Make sure that you do run through the Adobe Connect connection test page. That way you have the most recent version of Flash, and it also tests your internet connection. And then any further issues, if you continue to have issues, certainly reach out to us here at MeetingOne Support. We can get Adobe Support involved, and we can do some additional testing and get some more information from Adobe Connect. And then more specific, as far as recognizing computer headset, doesn't recognize mics, etc. For that, again, that would have to be working directly with Adobe Support, I would say, because it could be specifically a computer issue, or it could be an issue with the headset. It's difficult to say for us at MeetingOne, but I would reach out to Adobe Support with that directly, and we can certainly help facilitate that and also give some more information, but I would definitely say reach out to Adobe Support directly. Okay. I think that's about the last question that I did see in as far as that. So we're going to go ahead and, unless there's any last-minute questions that I do see that come in, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Like I said, we will send out a recording link with a follow-up email that contains the recording that we did do for this session. And if you have any other questions after viewing the recording or anything else after the fact, definitely please feel free to reach out to MeetingOne Support, and we would be more than happy to assist. Hope that you enjoyed this session and found something valuable and learned something today as well. So thank you all very much, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Happy Hump Day, and thanks.